Good evening. How is everyone doing tonight? Good. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dwayne T. James. I will be your moderator, facilitator, all of that tonight. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in person and then also online somehow, some way. Where's the video? I want to smile for the camera. How you doing? What's going on? All right. All right, so the candidates are seated by ward. From the audience's left, we have the Ward 2 candidates, Larry Robinette and Jamil Franklin. In the center, we have the Ward 1 candidates, Henry and Widowpool. All right, and Michael Palmer. On the right, we have the Ward 3 candidates, Fran Griffin and Micah Covington. Mika. M-I-K-A. I'm just telling you on here. I'm just telling you on here. All right, I thought it was, but anyway, thank you. You can go ahead and give them a round of applause for being here and everything. So I am happy to be the one to go through the list of questions and then also ensure that we have a fun, eventful, and educational evening as well. And so let me start off by giving the Proud's mission is to sponsor opportunities that will encourage Ferguson residents to work together to build a community of harmony and equity within a diverse group of people. Proud encourages people to share their ideas and priorities with one another to develop appreciation and respect for one another. Our events encourage participation by all members of the Ferguson community, encompassing a wide spectrum of opinions and political views. The emphasis will be on sharing proposals and visions for bettering our city. Proud's forums are not debates, they are meant to be conversations. The forums have no interest in choosing winners or losers. Each forum will concentrate on a specific topic, and all speakers and questions are to stay on topic. Tonight's topic is how do we encourage development on West Florissant? That's what we signed up for tonight. In the conversation or questions, if the conversations or questions stray too far from the topic, the candidates are under no obligation to respond. I will control the order of comments from the event attendees. After a short presentation by our subject matter expert, each candidate will have 5 minutes to discuss their thoughts on tonight's topic. The remaining time tonight will be available for questions to the candidates. The first question tonight was submitted by representatives of the West Florissant Business District. If anyone in attendance at the library wants to pose a question, we have distributed cards for you to submit a question. We have several assistants who will collect the questions and give them to the moderator, give them to me. For those attending online, please put your questions in chat. The online moderator will pose your questions to the candidate. Candidates are asked to limit their responses to the questions to 2 minutes each. Candidate forums will be videotaped. The videos will be posted to Proud's website and their Facebook page. One of the cameras captures a continuous 360-degree view of the room. Everyone in the room will be recorded during their entire event, so make sure you put on a pretty face. Other AV cameras pan to whoever is speaking. The camera is very sensitive. Any comments, including whispers, will be recorded and the camera will capture the image of the speaker. These forums are nonpartisan. No handouts or campaign literature is permitted. We ask the candidates limit all of their comments to tonight's topic. Proud events are successful because they bring together people of goodwill who can express their views frankly, constructively, and with respect to everyone. To achieve this success, everyone at Proud events needs to abide by our conversational agreements. The conversational agreements are posted, so you can easily refer to them. We have also handed out a copy of the conversational agreements to everyone in the library as you came in. Any attendee whose conduct is deemed by myself to be detrimental to the orderly proceedings of the event will be asked to leave. And we do not want that to happen, do we? We can say no altogether, it's okay. Thank you, there we go. No, oh, don't go with the sir. I mean, no, anyway, let's go. All right, so I want to introduce our guest speaker tonight to talk about West Florissant. Maud Bashad Trost is a senior project manager for the Community Investment Division at the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, STL Partnership. Maud is a 10-year community development professional focused on cultivating collaboration, equity, and forward-thinking initiatives that mobilize stakeholders, align resources, and create solutions to improve the quality of life for residents in historically underinvested communities. Ma served on the intergovernmental team that brought the 18 million RAISE grant for the West Florissant Great Streets project. She leads St. Louis Partnership's Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund and assessment grant programs that clean up sites to prepare them for redevelopment. She led portions of St. Louis Partnership's COVID response team that deployed a small business resource grant program that dispersed over 2.5 million to more than 2,500 businesses negatively impacted by the COVID-induced recession. Ma previously worked as a commercial district manager for St. Louis Development Corporation, leading the establishment of Dutchtown Community Improvement District, coordinating marketing and other support services for neighborhood commercial districts, and managing historic commercial storefront renovations for small business owners. With that, Maud, please come on up.
Good evening. Thanks so much for coming out on a foggy night. Wonderful to see the turnout for this. Thank you so much to Proud for inviting me to come and speak. And as Dwayne James mentioned, I'm Senior Project Manager with the Community Investment Division at St. Louis Partnership. The partnership is a comprehensive economic development organization that serves St. Louis City and County. We work with public and private partners throughout the region, nationally and internationally, to attract, retain, and facilitate business within St. Louis County and City. The Community Investment Division focuses our efforts to redevelop support for projects in underinvested communities in St. Louis City and County. So tonight, I'm going to set the stage for this conversation by sharing a little bit of history of the development of work along West Florissant Avenue that the partnership has either supported or touched, and share a few thoughts on challenges as well as opportunities for the corridor that leaders may want to consider as they plan for the West Florissant corridor's future. So in 2013, the West Florissant Great Streets Plan was initiated through a groundbreaking agreement with an intermunicipal partnership between the city of Ferguson and city of Delwood. The next year, in 2014, the Great Streets project was published, and the outcomes of that report looked at redesigns for the corridor in Ferguson and Delwood that focused on safety improvements, increasing the variety of transportation opportunities along the corridor, as well as consistent design and beautification. Immediately after in the years after the report was published, St. Louis County led an effort to apply for federal funds through the Federal Highway Administration to receive the federal grants that would be needed to implement the Great Streets project. After a couple of rounds of applications and not being awarded that funding, the cities of Ferguson, Delwood, and Jennings decided to move forward with the Great Streets Plan through a zoning and land use study and redesign efforts, the purpose of which was to create distinct commercial zones and residential zones along based on the West Florissant Great Streets Plan that identified corridors and sections where you wanted new businesses, as well as consistent design guidelines for any new construction. And the outcome is intended for any new businesses or new construction to support, to encourage safety along the corridor and to also create a more cohesive look along the West Florissant corridor. In 2020, shifting gears a little, the city of Ferguson published its comprehensive plan, the Our Ferguson 2040 plan. And that looked at the entire city, but it highlights West Florissant Avenue, the West Florissant corridor, as a key component within that comprehensive plan. And so some of the key actions that that plan that the city of Ferguson identified included the need for transit improvements that would increase multimodal transit opportunities, increase safety, and improve connectivity between commercial and residential nodes of the city. It also looked at expanding resources to support the West Florissant Business District, specifically citing the establishment of a Community Improvement District, or a SID, which is a state designated entity that is a local special taxing district that would collect revenue to pay for specific public facilities, improvements, and other services within whatever that defined geography would be. So then the next year in 2021, St. Louis County once again submitted a RAISE grant application to the Federal Highway Administration in partnership with Ferguson, with Delwood, and with many other regional partners. And the county at the end of that year in December was awarded $18.2 million for the RAISE grant. In 2022, the county held public hearings on the design plans in both Ferguson and Delwood. And then in 23 and 24, the county has been working on all the pre-construction efforts that have to go through an approval process. It's a long effort. But hopefully construction for the corridor is anticipated to begin this fall or spring of 2026. Regionally, the West Florissant corridor has significant support and momentum to propel further development. St. Louis County recognizes it as a critical commercial corridor for this whole region. However, it is important for city leadership to be clear-eyed about potential challenges and opportunities for the corridor. So our Ferguson 2040 comprehensive plan states that from a market perspective, Ferguson is considered over-retailed, meaning it has more retail space available than the local market can support. Analysis shows that the city has nearly 1.5 million square feet of retail space concentrated in the downtown and north and south ends of the West Florissant Avenue corridor. Within a 10-minute drive from Ferguson, there is market support for roughly 2 million square feet of retail. So this does not mean that the existing retail is doomed to failure. But recall, this is a report from 2020. It does suggest the need for placemaking, marketing, and diversifying the mix of goods, services, and dining and entertainment being offered. The report also says along West Florissant Avenue in Southeast Ferguson, the retail rents are between $8 and $10 per square foot. This generally suggests that landlords are deferring maintenance and that there will be a need for support from the public and nonprofit sectors to help shift market desirability. In Northeast Ferguson, the development is much newer, and the proximity to the interstate and a broader market area allows rents of between $16 to $20 per square foot. So this highlights the disparity in market conditions within Ferguson and suggests that there are many areas that may need public investment or incentives to attract businesses and revitalize commercial spaces. Additionally, many of the new developments along the corridor are nonprofit entities. The services many of these entities offered are critical to the community and are generally welcomed. However, Ferguson also needs to be mindful of maintaining and building its business tax base. Unfortunately, nonprofit businesses may not add the critical tax base required to sustain, let alone increase public investments and improvements. Finally, most entities that monitor and measure national and international economic conditions state that we are entering a period of economic uncertainty. Inflation rates remain high, consumer confidence is low, and the Federal Reserve 2 weeks ago opted to not lower baseline interest rates. And they specifically cited due to new federal international trade policies. So these factors are likely to impact business and infrastructure investment in some way. However, there are opportunities. The city of Ferguson is resilient there, and where there is imagination and invention, there will always be opportunity. The 2040 report also states that West Florissant represents the opportunity to create a place that is more inviting, more commercially vibrant, and better integrated with the neighborhood surrounding it. And this is the report that came from the city and through community engagement and conversation. So this is the voice of Ferguson, not me as a representative of the partnership stating this. The city of Ferguson recently broke ground on the new Mayline Greenway trailhead at the intersection of West Florissant and Cantfield. And I can't think of a better example of placemaking at an intersection that is culturally significant to the Ferguson and West Florissant community. The $18.2 million RAISE grant investment has the potential to transform the way residents, businesses, and the region utilize and spend money on the corridor. Finally, the recent history of implementing improvements to the corridor was possible because Ferguson was open to forging key partnerships with neighboring governments that have a shared interest in improving the corridor, both the county, Delwood, and others. So the West Florissant Avenue, it has challenges, but it also holds immense potential. With the grant, the trailhead, and a regional commitment to coordinating development, there is momentum for meaningful change. But success will depend on strategic leadership, investment, and collaboration. And so tonight, I thank everyone for being here and for the candidates being here. And I look forward to hearing from them about the policies, partnerships, or initiatives they believe are needed to ensure the development along the corridor is both sustainable and beneficial for the entire community. Thank you.
Thanks, Maud, for that great information. And we will have each candidate will have 5 minutes to discuss their thoughts on the topic before we get into questions. And so you do have postcards. So as the candidates come up, make sure that you can put your questions on the postcards. And after every candidate, we will ask the question. So first up is Jamil.
Good evening. My name is Jamil Franklin. I'm running for Ward 2 City Council. Try to be brief tonight with my opening comments simply because last forum, we had a lot of questions that we fielded, but we didn't get to everyone's questions. So try to keep it brief. I'm sure, I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone that's in attendance here and also online. I know the vast majority of everyone here is probably already made up your mind who you're supporting. So I appreciate your passion in coming out and hearing what we have to say tonight. Just a little bit background again about who I am. I'm born and raised here in St. Louis region. Spent the last 9 years living here in Ferguson, got married here, started my family here. So definitely have a vested interest in the future of Ferguson. Plan for this to be my forever home, God willing. As far as our topic tonight, I'll be brief and just say that I think what's most important is that we realize as a community that we all have a collective stake in the economic development of our city. So it's not going to be one individual who has a plan to save us all or a council. It's going to take our council, our city staff, neighbors, our HOAs, everyone collectively partnering, working together for a common good. We probably won't always agree on everything, but I think we all can agree that we want to see the city of Ferguson flourish and move forward. So thank you.
Next up, Larry.
Thank you, Maud, for the overview, Dwayne for moderating. Thank you, residents, for being here, fellow candidates. I'm Larry Robinette. I'm running for Ward 2 council position. My thoughts on the West Florissant corridor, it had been several years since I had actually looked back through the plan and the 2040 plan and familiarized myself with what's going on there. But I think we've had some significant changes since that plan was put together. One of the biggest ones is the vacating of the Emerson property on the south end of that corridor. That was a huge anchor for the West Fall Center and the ability to retain businesses there. We no longer have that. I think for this to move forward and start on the southern end, which is what the plan calls for, we're going to need to have focus on what's going on with the Emerson property. I don't have the answer to that. I don't think anybody in this room does, nor anyone else, but it's going to require a lot of collective thought and get together. It's going to require working with the owners of the property and looking into what we can do to turn that into something that helps anchor the southern end of the West Florissant Corridor project. As you move on up the project and you come into the middle area, I think there's been some development there, but that development's all been nonprofit. It hasn't anchored anything in terms of tax base for the city of Ferguson. They're good projects, they're good things to be there, but in order for it to flourish, it's going to have a tax base to feed back and maintain that West Florissant corridor. It's my understanding from refreshing my memory with the 2040 plan that Ferguson's on the hook for much of the maintenance in the West Florissant corridor. That means we need the money to do that and the staff to retain it and make sure it works. Particularly a big corridor like that takes a fair amount of maintenance. And some of the things that they have planned are greenery and again, you know, a fair amount of maintenance, but that reduces 5 or 6 lane wide concrete eyesore, right, into something that's much prettier, but then it also requires the maintenance on the background. When you get into the northern end of that corridor and you start looking at what's anchored up there by 270, that's where the stronghold is on the West Florissant corridor. You've got Walmart, you've got QT, you've got you've got many of the big names up there. But I think that we ought to revisit that area and have a discussion. And I was thinking back just to the Chick-fil-A discussion that took place a few years ago. That was not something that was supported by the residents in the area. So I think we need to revisit the northern corridor and just figure out what the residents there are willing to have placed in that corridor to be able to make sure that we can put something in there that one, works for the residents, and two, generates tax revenue to help put the West Florissant corridor, you know, on the construction list and start moving in that direction. I think moving into the southern end to start down there first is what needs the most discussion. I would recommend that we take this back into the larger group audience, have some discussion to take a look at what's gone on with the vacating of the Emerson property and see if there's something that we might want to think about starting somewhere else first in the corridor. Thank you.
Next up is Fran.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fran Griffin, and I'm running for Councilwoman for the 3rd Ward in the city of Ferguson. Just a little background history. I am a 20-year resident of the 3rd Ward. Purchased my house when I was 24. I did that because my oldest son was about to start kindergarten, and I was looking for a school district that my money could afford. And I've been here ever since, ingrained in the community. I wanted to touch on the development of West Florissant. So let me just start off by saying we have a comprehensive plan. I was actually the council liaison for that 2040 plan that was just mentioned. It was a year-long process. We had the opportunity to sit down with community, with stakeholders, large businesses in the community, smaller business in the community. I also took part in the One West Florissant project. So I was able to sit down and have those discussions with community about what we wanted to see. And I think in terms of the development that we need, what we did was create a layout, but we definitely talked specifically about that Sector 5. Sector 5 starts at about Ferguson Avenue on West Florissant. It goes right up to the residential, right before you get to the residential area. That area, they talked about the traffic and how fast the traffic was going, the fact that we didn't have spaces where our community could sit and dine and eat and enjoy each other's company as a community. And so we talked about what that could look like. I actually remember participating in the different surveys that they had where we had the tires laid out in the middle of the street to kind of give us an idea of what that would look like when we had the median in place, when we had the walkways in place. And so I'm looking forward to this discussion with everyone. I definitely feel like it's something that's needed. You know, that Sector 5 area is the third ward. That's the third ward in the city of Ferguson. And so it's going to matter that we work with the Community Development Corporation. Forestwood has one. It says in the comprehensive plan that we're supposed to have one for Southeast Ferguson Neighborhood Association as well, which I was actually part of creating Southeast Ferguson Neighborhood Association. So I look to continue that work as city council with the neighborhood association so that we can get what we need in our community specifically. When it comes to development and things of that nature, yes, Emerson has moved, but they still own the property. They still have a business that they do in other places. The city of Ferguson can partner with that company. And so I would just like to provide just an imagery of what that looks like. In my mind, I see us working with them on and having the city of Ferguson actually having solar lighting to create revenue, you know, for the city so that we can start putting money and investing that into that specific corridor. I think the city of Ferguson would be a great start for us to do something like that. And I also see us having a market of some sort similar to the market that's on South Florissant, because we do have a lot of walkers. We do have residents in the community that can grow food and come and bring their products and their services and be able to sell them to our community. I want this to be a place where we all learn how to empower each other as a community, not just empowering the businesses that are along the corridor, which are very important, but I want us to look at how we can create what we need to so that we will be able to enjoy our place, not just along South Florissant, but along West Florissant as well.
Thank you, Fran. And I just want to share out that Fran mentioned one West Florissant, just mentioning for everyone's education as well. One West Florissant was part of the conversations that St. Louis County did back in 2019 to unite the 3 different municipalities. And in full disclosure, I am on that board as well. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew about that. All right, Henry is up next.
Good evening. Thank you for participating. And my fellow candidates, everybody on the circle is trying to do the right thing for Ferguson, I assume. I'm Henry Wonderful. I'm running for Ward 1. And I appreciate what Proud does in terms of getting the community together. But I did get a phone call and told me not to make any mention about my opponent because my opponent called them. And I kind of felt offended by that, but that's okay. What we are talking about today is economic development. And Ferguson faces severe economic challenges compared to the neighboring cities. One of those things is concentration of economic development. We're just talking about the 3rd ward. The 3rd ward has a concentration of lack of economic development in that area. And in order for a city to move forward, you cannot neglect each part of the ward. They have to get equal distribution of the resources. Another thing that happens is distorted physical planning. If you don't have elected officials, that's what we're running for. If you don't have an elected official that understands what needs to be done with regards to economic planning, it becomes a problem. These are the tools that you need to achieve those. One is TIF. We know what TIF is. And the other one is sales rebate and development agreement, TDD. You mentioned TDD earlier. Community Development Business District, which you mentioned. Neighborhood Improvement District, property tax district is covered under the Missouri statute, land use. Those are the tools that we need to use in order to properly talk about economic development. The previous speaker said that the Emerson building, we don't know what we can do with Emerson building. If Emerson building is not producing anything to Ferguson, the elected officials can approach the owners and say, we need to have a conversation, and that conversation will entail planning on you either selling your property to somebody else we found that need to buy it, or we can take that property. By statute, we have what is called eminent domain. We have a right to take property for public use. And if the public use we're talking about is Ferguson, and for the betterment of the people of Ferguson. So to have a building that is sitting there not producing anything to us when we can generate something from it is a problem. So I know that if you have us in there, that we're going to be able to come up with an idea of what needs to be done. I trust that my partners here have an idea what needs to be done. The current city council hasn't been doing that, and that's why I'm running for office. And talking about doing economic development west of Florissant when South Florissant hasn't been done is an issue. We've got the application in 2020 for this West Florissant Avenue development. The last meeting I went to, and it was mentioned tonight, they were concerned about who's going to cut the grass. Get the money, get the $24 million first, get the job done. We'll find a way to cut the grass. So that's what's critical in terms of thinking, in terms of having elected officials who know what they need to do. And that's why I'm running for office. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Next up is Mike.
James, I would request that somebody from Proud address the first statement Mr. Iwanifu made.
Yes.
I will respond too.
Yes, I made the call. I called both of you. I did not say that I was calling you because Mike called me. I called both of you because within Proud, we talked about the environment that was growing and we didn't want negative comments to be made. I did not call you because Mike called me.
Well, I inquired about how I decided to get a phone call. I was told that Mike called you saying that if I said anything, let me finish. This is what I was told. If I said anything to attack him, he will attack me. And I have never attacked anybody in this race. They attacked me first. So if there's any, and it would be incumbent on anybody that is attacked to defend him or herself. We had 2 series of conversations. I never attacked. I'm eloquent enough to know what to say about an individual without calling him a 4-letter words. So I would never come here to attack Mike. I talk about issues, politics. He sends me his baby picture. I call him on the phone and he took my voice message and played it in public. I don't have any personal issue against it. All I'm simply saying, we should have it. When you have a candidate forum, you should have able to, in the citizens to differentiate between the 2 candidates. Yeah.
Point of order, can we keep this like non-personal and stick to business, please? I'm Joshua Davis from West Florissant Business Association. So understand, but can we keep this business?
Thank
I just
you.
want to call a point of order.
Here. Mike, are you comfortable with moving forward?
I just wanted to clarify, I didn't call anybody. Jerry Knowles sent me a text message and said, you have time to talk.
Okay. All right. So are you comfortable moving forward after Jerry?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Mike.
My name is Mike Palmer. I'm a 40-year lifelong resident of Ferguson. This topic favors me. I'm actually a real estate developer by trade. I have been implemental in the transformation of South Florissant Road personally and professionally. I not only have attracted dozens and dozens of businesses to that corridor, I've volunteered on that business district board for over 6 years. Also served on Ferguson's Missouri Main Street board in a volunteer position. I also own business on Florissant Road. It took 25 years to get to where it is, which still has a ways to go, but 20 years ago, it did not look great. There was similar issues that are on West Florissant. There was liquor stores and widespread vacancy issues and infrastructure needs. So I've seen what it takes to get it done. And some of the things that West Florissant could do to start, like the speaker said, the north portion doesn't really struggle nearly as much, and I would attribute that mostly to the proximity to Highway 270 and newer development. So West Florison's the city's bread and butter. You know, it has 5 times as many cars traveling it per day than South Florissant. A few anchor businesses on the northern part of West Florissant generate more sales tax revenue than all of South Florissant Road combined. So it's critical to, you know, gauge the interest of the residents and the stakeholders on the northern portion and ask them what they want to see as far as changes up there. But also, some things we can do is engage the neighborhoods that are adjacent that have had issues with some of the development plans. Another thing to help with increasing potential discretionary income in the area would be to work to finish the development on Somerset that has never been done in over 23 years. It started, I think it's only 10 or 20% constructed. Those are all infrastructure-ready home sites. The sewers run, the electrics run, the waters run, the roads are there. The neighborhood could be finished relatively quickly. That would help with having residential areas adjacent that are filled, that have consumers of products in those areas. When you get through Delwood has some of the same struggles we have. They've lost some of their anchor businesses, especially in their old former Schnucks Plaza. But then when you get through the residential area into the southern part of West Florissant, there's only probably about 17 or 18, 20 businesses left. The one business in the former Walgreens is closing soon, I saw, and the credit union is now closed too. So there's a vacancy issue down there that needs to be addressed. You know, why don't businesses want to open down there? Is it have to do with the proximity, the discretionary income with the residents who live adjacent there? I think that has a lot to do with it. But we lost McDonald's. I mean, when McDonald's, who sells cheap food, leaves, that's not a good sign. I mean, there's just not a market for a lot of that stuff down there. So while the infrastructure improvements, the $18 million will make big changes to the area, you know, Field of Dreams doesn't necessarily apply here. If you build it, they will come. I mean, you have to do other things. You have to attract businesses to come in. You have to, you know, there's a proposed project for Park Ridge Apartments that would take it from 336 units and almost halve it into much fewer units, where it would have less people in one area, which would reduce crime, increase discretionary income in that area. That would be a good thing. Now that's on the west side of West Florissant. On the east side, you have 4 apartment complexes right there with Oakmont Townhomes, Versailles Apartments, which are basically empty, Canfield, which is a new name now, and Park North in the back. There's a whole lot of crime and issues over there and vacancy problems. When the census happened, North Park was basically empty. That's 438 units. And that was why Ward 3 had to get redistricted, and part of Ward 1 was taken, or, you know, into Ward 3, because there was just a big loss of population down there. So, but there's also positives in that part of the town. There's not floodplain concerns. South Florissant Road has major floodplain concerns. The lots are very deep. There's lots of room for parking. You know, that's a big issue we have on South Florissant Road. But in the traffic counts alone should attract many people. When you start hearing numbers like $8 per square foot, that's pretty bad. And she's not joking. The deferred maintenance is apparent. I mean, the planters outside the public storage have been falling apart for a decade. You know, and you see it, the buildings are aging, they're old. The second story on some of those buildings is inaccessible, so it's almost functionally obsolete for most business these days. So there's opportunity there, but the business district that Mr. Davis was chair of, that needs to get revamped. They need to develop their vision for West Florissant. They can then advocate for what they want to see. They could set up a self-taxing district to help fund some of their initiatives and do studies and do some of the things they want to see. Get the residents involved down there, but also you got to find people that want to develop property down there that aren't in the not-for-profit sector. And that would make a big difference. Thank you.
Okay. Don't stare me down like I'm gonna say it wrong twice in a row.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Lamika Covington. I'm running for councilperson for Ward 3. I did go over the plan. I never really traveled on West Florissant a lot. I take Hudson to go to the gas station. So after reading it, I did travel a lot up and down West Florissant just to look. So I didn't even know Ward 3 until I started running. for the council that Ward 3 was even over that way. So after reading that, the first thing while I was driving, I was more like the safety. I would not want to cross the street on West Florissant. I really want to drive on West Florissant. So I thought that like the safety was like the first biggest part. The real estate part, I don't know nothing about that. That's a Mike thing. So I saw the vacancy though. But I also was thinking, what would we want over here? Who would want, what companies would we want over here? What do we want it to look like? I had different ideas, but would the community support those? We can get a donut shop over there, but will people get donuts every day? The amount of the rent. So we have to think about, yeah, we can make it look really pretty, but will those companies succeed over there? So we can throw anything in there, but we got to make sure that those companies are going to succeed and that they'll stay. And also, it's a lot of vacant homes over there too. So we got to get people in the community. Like Jamil said, we need to work together as a community and figure out what we want over there. But first, I think we need to start with the safety, the speeding, the being able to cross the street, just being safe over there in that community. I love the pictures of the people walking and riding bikes. Right now, we are not at that place right now. So I am gonna stop talking so we can get some questions in, but most of everybody said something that was important that we want to see on West Florissant, so I'm not gonna repeat what everybody said. I'm gonna give us some time and for us to answer some questions.
All right, thank you everyone for sharing your initial thoughts on the topic for tonight. How do we encourage development on West Florissant? Remember, you do have postcards if you want to ask any questions. Our first question was submitted by the West Florissant Business Association. I modified it just a little bit. I hope that's okay. And so we've heard about the plans that are in place, and we also have heard about the issues that might be in place as far as the redevelopment. My question to you is, what do you plan to push to implement day 1, day 2, day 3 to really rebuild West Florissant and make sure that it's flourishing and sustainable like other parts of our city? And first up is Larry.
So I think the first thing to push.
Can you come to the mic? Yep, thanks.
So I think the first thing to push day 1, day 2, day 3 on West Florissant is revitalizing the strong area that we have, right? We need to make sure that that anchor stays in place so that we have what we need to start developing on down. We have a grant to start some of the work there, but it isn't comprehensive and won't cover everything that's in the plan. So I think in order to get that started moving, the construction work that's planned for this fall or early in the spring needs to focus on what we can do to bring the anchors in and start where we kind of stop in the north corridor and come work our way down from there. Once we've done that, then we reach the residential area, the development that Mike's talked about in the area that hasn't even been developed for homes yet, that's got electric, water, everything in there. I think that's going to require some vision to be able to get something there. You can't build a new home in Ferguson right now and sell it for what you can get out of it, right? You have to rehab something. Building new takes more per square foot than you can get out of the home when you put it up for sale. Close, but we're coming backwards out of that with the real estate market starting to have a downturn, not an upturn. Thank you.
Next up is Fran.
I think day 1, day 2, day 3 looks like us meeting with the new owners of the Emerson property. I did do a little research in regards to what they envisioned that property being, and it was stated that they were looking at possibly having mixed use home living assisting there. So they wanted to have that was a potential. They said that they moved because, you know, when it comes to business and things of that nature, the way that the world is working. They didn't need all of that space to be able to utilize it. So I think for us, for the city of Ferguson, it would be good for us to build that relationship with that company. Let's talk about what that looks like, because that is mixed use income buildings are one of the things that was listed in the comprehensive plan. We talked about what that would look like along West Florissant. When we went through all the surveys and listened to the community, we talked about, having a senior citizen home in there where we could have some affordable. And when I say mixed use, I mean market rate plus affordable housing. That's the one thing we need. I will say this, Sector 5, we have a lot of community. We have a lot of walkers in that area. So I look at it like a gold mine, to be honest with you. And yes, the businesses that are along that corridor are gonna matter. Yes, we have to understand the economics of the people that live in the area, because we will have to have businesses that people can come and support, that the businesses will stay long-term because they'll have people that'll walk up and down the street as we get the median and those things. But that's what I would say, my first things first, that's what I would say.
Next up is Henry.
I think I'm gonna repeat what Fran said, but in a different way. I think we should not only talk to Emerson Building, but also we need to be talking to other businesses that are maybe interested in buying that campus or doing something to bring jobs. We talked about nonprofit organizations. They are essential, but it's critical to have income generating businesses that are going to be paying for people to move to Ferguson, which will allow for that new building, new properties, new development of homes in Ferguson. The president just did something today. He basically put a tariff, and the tariff is going to make it very difficult for everybody in this room. Some of our 401k is going down. So it will be critical that we pay attention for us as city council members, pay attention to bringing businesses that will try to manufacture in the United States rather than overseas. That campus is big enough, and there's so many things we can do on that campus. And it's also critical that we think about the poverty that we see in our communities. How do we address those poverty? Address it by having companies who are creating jobs. And so by bringing companies who are going to create jobs in our community, we alleviate some of the poverty that we have in our community. So, and I think that's very critical, that location, and also implementing, making sure that, because I don't know what's going on, but the attorney generals are trying to the president is trying to claw back the funds, the $18 million we're talking about may be clawed back if he can get it, but they're in court now trying to fight him, not taking money back from the money that was already earmarked by Congress. So hopefully that's what we'll be doing once we get in. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Next up is Mike.
It sounds to me like the street improvements are going to happen, even though we've been hearing that for about 11 years now. But I think the next step would be to make sure that we're prepared with the opinions of the business environment on West Florissant, as well as the residents, because the residents have been quite vocal about some of the business decisions that the council have been made in the last couple years, whether it's the Starbucks, the Quick Trip, proposed Chick-fil-A, all these different things, liquor, an event space that sells liquor as well on the southern side of the business district. So I think it's important to get the West Florissant Business Association back to having a quorum, having regular meetings, and encouraging them to have an active council liaison who comes to those meetings. And they need to really develop and advocate for what they want to see on West Florissant, what they think is successful, because those businesses that are there probably have some sort of success already if they're still there, or they know what's not working. So it's good to get their idea of what may work, what may not work, what is working, what is not working, and talk to them, because I know they haven't been meeting in quite some time, or it's just not been, it's been sporadic. So, but also they need to bring in the neighborhoods that are adjacent, because the residents also do have quite a bit of an interest in what's going on all along West Florissant, both north and south. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Miko?
Okay, so day one, day two, day three. I think that needs to, we need to discuss safety, you know, I'm big on the safety. I also know that Fran said that, you guys did have meetings with the community. Not sure when, but I know the plan was put together 2014. A lot of things have changed. A lot of people have moved, more people have moved in. So I think we need to get the community together to find out what they want over there. We've seen whereas, Ground Zero was all the way up and people came in, and was like, nope, I don't want it there. So we don't want to invite people in that we're not gonna invite them in to have a business and then get them petitioned out. So I think we need to start with the community, know what they want. And again, safety.
Okay, day one, day two, day three. So I would start by meeting with, our mayor, city manager, and the rest of the council. Got to make sure that we're on the same page before we approach any community partners or residents, because if our house is divided, who would want to invest in a place like that? So, after doing that, I guess day four, day five, day six, I would approach community partners, St. Louis County, City of Dalewood. I would also reach out to the area, colleges and universities. We've got Florissant Valley to the north, and we've got UMSA to the south of our city. When I envision Ferguson, I envision a place like University Loop. I've seen what they've done, WashU, St. Louis U have done throughout the city of St. Louis and parts of University City. Why not Ferguson? So, you know, I'm all about bringing everyone to the table, getting on the same page, and after I meet with those entities, then I would bring it to the residents of the three wards to see, hey, this is what we have in store. This is what we would like to pitch. What do you think? Residents may agree, they may disagree. We can go back to the drawing table and we can also field ideas from the residents about what they want to see in the community. So those would be my first, I guess, 6 days on the job. All right.
Thank you so very much. All right, next question. Understanding that the redevelopment, work that we were just talking about does require federal grants, and understanding that, funding can be diversified in so many different ways. What is your plans and ideas for diversifying, funding to ensure that economic development actually happens along the corridor? With that, Fran is up first. Right when you take some water. Fran is up first. Oh, no, no.
Diversified funds, so we're gonna need public and private funding in order to kick this off. We're definitely gonna need the money that we've already had earmarked to be able to do the streets. And, it's gonna also take us meeting with new business owners that are now here. I just wanna be clear in terms of the comprehensive plan, it wasn't just residents. It was made up of residents, stakeholders, business owners, small and large. We met with different departments within St. Louis County, the Economic Development Department. We met with, just a slew of people. And this was not something that just took a couple of weeks. We're talking about a year's worth of us planning and putting together. The business district for West Florissant was part of that process. Forestwood was part of that process. And so what we did was to take that collective, all of those ideas, all of those thoughts, and put that together. So I would also say, one thing we need to do is actually read the comprehensive plan. Because one of the things that we don't do is create a plan and then not go along with it. We talked about what needed to be done in the apartment complexes. We talked about making sure that safety is our biggest concern. We talked about how much traffic goes along there, and how we would need to structure those buildings that we develop to ensure that people aren't just driving past them, that they drive and they pull in and they actually visit those retail sites. We talked about mixed income. So I think one of the things we definitely need to do, on top of looking at what other private and public funding we can get, is actually read the comprehensive plan.
Next up is Henry.
Thank you. I think the most important thing we can do when you don't have money is build public-private partnership. We have TIF that we can use to attract businesses to come and do development in our community. We have the taxing district that I just mentioned earlier. There are several ways of making your place attractive. Ferguson has 270, 170, and 70, and an airport and a community college, and also close to us. Any place in the country that has those is a prime real estate. It's finding people who have foresight and also creating a diverse economic development plan, not just one way. And we see that with our president, and only him can fix it. You need a lot of people, a lot of ideas to get this done. And to do so, as a city council member, the first thing I would do, just like my colleague said, get with the stakeholders, the community, because you got to look from bottom up, and the elected officials that we're working together. We can find and work with the economic development from the state of Missouri. They can help us. We also can work with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Department of Commerce. I've worked with them in the past, and I think they can be helpful to us in terms of developing our community. So it is critical that we think beyond just having certain things in our community. If you have been to Nashville, if you have been to Webster Grove, they're down the street from us. Those things, we don't have to reinvent a way to do it. So thank you.
Mike, diversifying the funding sources.
So the infrastructure improvements for great streets, I believe the funding has all been kind of hashed out between federal resources, county, municipal. I know that it is earmarked in the city's of Ferguson's budget as well. I think over 2 years, I think so. But I did see that it's been in the budget for quite some time because it's been kind of dragging on for quite some time. Now, when it comes to actually seeing, other things other than road improvements, landscaping, lighting, walkability, ADA compliance and such, with the way the market economy is down there, with the rents as low as they are and the tax rates as high as they are, you're going to have public-private partnerships, but you're going to struggle to find lenders that want to participate in an area such as West Florissant, especially the southern corridor. So it's going to take multiple groups to get redevelopment projects going. I mean, you're going to have the private equity, maybe the county will step in, maybe they won't. But when it comes to building, mixed-use buildings, commercial buildings, your commercial lender is critical to get that project done. But they're going to look at the market rate of the rents and they're going to say, well, this isn't viable when you take into consideration the insurance and the taxes. There's got to be a way to figure out whether it's an abatement or if they set up a CID or a TDD or a TIF or whatever they want to do. There's going to have to be some sort of a public side of that helps evaluate redevelopment agreements. And the key is that you want to make sure those redevelopment agreements are viable financially so that there's actually a payback with economic activity within the district via utility taxes, sales taxes, real estate taxes. All those things play into the overall approach and investment through those tax sources into the district. Thank you.
Mika.
Not gonna get up here and pretend like I know anything about investing. I have no idea. I know public loans, private loans. So I'm gonna agree with Fran and Mike on that. Mike is in that business. So I would lean on the people that's on council with me at that time to help educate me on that. And I would learn and educate myself on that, but I'm not gonna get up here and pretend like I even know how that even begins or stop. Thank you.
It's okay, we know our strengths. Jamil?
So I think we have a lot of options to consider. Of course, public and private monies. The city will have to look into grant writing. You know, right now, I don't know if we have anyone on staff that actually has that expertise, but there are various grant programs we can look in to fund different projects here at the city. I think about the neighborhood I grew up in. I grew up in the West End neighborhood in the city. For those that don't know, that's south of Page, west of Union, north of Delmar, and east of Skinker. And so it was a pretty rough neighborhood growing up. You know, it's the home of the old Cabinet Court projects, if any of you are old enough to remember that. And so I remember a time when, you know, everyone was disinterested in investing, and the Delmar divide was a thing. And what I noticed, what changed the community were actually the HOA organizations. I used to be the chair for West End Neighbors, and one of the things we did in the early days, we reached out to potential investors. One of those investors was Maxine Clark. She's the founder of Build-A-Bear, and we just showed her the community, the housing stock potential, the actual potential of that neighborhood. And the businesswoman she is, she decided to invest in the old St. Luke's Regional Hospital. And now today it's called the Delmar Divine, and it's an incubator for that community with non-for-profits. It's got a meat market, a pharmacy, one of the few Black-owned pharmacies in our region. And, you know, the West End community is one of those emerging communities within the city of St. Louis. A lot of the elected officials in the city live there now. So I think that's the ticket is, you know, we have to have vision. We have to approach as we are and see who's willing to invest. If they see strong community involvement, they may take a chance on us. Wish I had more time, but I'll save it for the next question. Thanks.
Larry?
Oh, you forgot. So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Where do we get the money to fund this? Right? So if the 18+ million is in hand and there to use, I think that funds a lot of the infrastructure work. But I sit on a couple of boards. I have leadership positions. Both of those boards depend on grants, and it doesn't look pretty, right? You guys all read the news. So it's going to require private investment. And I think Mr. Palmer already touched on the challenges of private investment, right? Those are really the only options that you have. You either finance this on somebody taking a risk to do the development of a business along that corridor, or you fund it on the backs of the people that are residents through additional taxes, or you get grants, which is still through additional taxes, right? So I think the challenges are going to be there for us. The way that you get around those is you have a council that has vision, that understands options, that knows where to turn when the first option and the second option don't work out. What can you do for the third option, right? And I think that requires a lot of working with private businesses, because quite honestly, that's going to be where it's at. If the rents and the sales and the projections work and fund those things, then I think the private groups will come to the table with funding to help build those businesses. If they don't, we'll have some challenges. We'll have to start looking at options 4, 5, and 6. Thank you.
Great. This is coming from one of our online viewers. So what do you think the entire community can do to support the work that's done on West Florissant and the South Corridor to ensure that businesses and this project is successful? What do you think the entire community can do to support the work that's done on the South Corridor and West Florissant to ensure businesses are successful? With that, we'll have Henry start us off.
Thank you for the question. Just vote for me. Well, I think what we need to do, the community needs to hold the council members and their government accountable, because when you speak, they'll listen. If you don't speak, they don't know what you need. So I think that's what they need to do in respect of finding funding for these projects. They're available. There's so many people looking for places to invest. The issue is the people knowing if you're not gonna get it from the government, you can get it from foreign investors. It doesn't matter if they come from Britain or if they come from France, as long as the money that the city needs to do the projects that they need is there. I did it in Detroit. When Mayor Atcha was having problems getting money from Lansing, what did they do? They were able to get Comerica Bank, which is Arab-based bank. Comerica Bank started funding them. And what happens? The federal government, the state government decided to partner with them. So the community needs to participate in terms of pushing the government, their representative elected officials to do what they need to do and hold their foot down so that we can get this work done. And the other thing is that the council members have to look to alternative or finding funding to get this done because there is an alternative. If the federal government is not spending money, businesses are spending money, investors are spending money because they are looking for opportunity to make money. And Ferguson's got, I bought a house here because I love the place. And Ferguson's got a lot of opportunity that people don't even know exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Mike. I think one of the easiest things we can do as residents of Ferguson to encourage development on West Florissant is to patronize businesses on West Florissant. So if there's a need you have and that's over there and it's quality service or product, I would encourage you to shop there because especially with the small business owners generally are habitual small business owners. So, they're prolific. So if they're successful in one business, they'll open another one. And oftentimes it's very close. We experienced this on South Florissant Road at one time when one person had 4 restaurants. One would say that's too many restaurants, but they managed to keep them all open. There must be some sort of an economics of scale there that made sense for them. But, if it's buying tires at the tire shop down there, if that encourages them to open up a place next door that sells smoothies, that's a way to keep the money within the community. And then people will reinvest that money within the community. I do this on a personal level. Every dime I make, I reinvest within the community. I don't take money outside of the city ever. All my projects, when I invest in a project and redo it and I get a business moved in, I take the money I make there and I can move down the street and do another project. I don't go all over St. Louis County or all over country. So I think it's important to focus whenever you can, spend your money within the community, but also we need to have more of our citywide events in that part of town to bring awareness to what's going on. I don't know if you guys know, there's a park being built right now over there. It's actually happening right now. It's good to, when that park's open, take your family to that park. Maybe Parks and Rec should have a movie night over there. Maybe people realize that there actually are businesses over there still open. Bringing more of our resources to the parts of the city where we don't frequent is going to bring more awareness to what needs to be done or what is good. We get ice cream up in West Florissant at Heaven's Creamery, which is a small business in a strip center. You wouldn't think it was even there, but it's 2 doors down and it's a great place to go get ice cream. So supporting those businesses keeps them open. It also makes people realize that they could maybe support a business or open a business in those areas too. And next thing you know, you got 10, 20 businesses and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Mika?
Yeah, you got it right now. I would say what the community needs to do is, communicate with the council members. Let them know what you want over there. Talk to other business, find out if they have a business somewhere that they would like to move over here. But I think the community has a voice, so use it. Tell us what you want to see over there. If you go to Delmore shopping, let us know those different places that's over there that you go out of Ferguson to go to. I went and got some records, not that there's a sale over in Ferguson. I don't know who all into records, but I went over on Delmore. I would like to have a record place over here that I would. Not that that would be something that we possibly could have, but if you're traveling outside of Ferguson, a couple of times out of the week, maybe somebody else is doing that too. So let us know what you want in your area where you live. I think that is where we start, where our community starts.
Might get my steps in.
So there's a lot of things, residents could do, in my opinion. One of the main things is just getting involved. And what that means is, meet your neighbors, talk to your neighbors, get involved with your HOA. Go to council meetings, look and see what board or commission you could serve, get involved in the city. Mike, you made a good point, patronize the businesses in this town. And then, Becca, you did a good job posting about your experience at some of those businesses to help actually keep a local business open that was about to close. So those are the things that we have to learn to do as neighbors. We've got to support ourselves, support one another. Also our city, if you see trash on the side of the road, stop and pick it up, hold each other accountable. I think there's two ladies now, every morning they're cleaning up Florissant Road, from all the trash people throw out of their windows. Years ago, I posted before I ran, somebody dumped trash in the middle of my street and there was a receipt on the bag. So I put them on blast on social media. So these are things that we can do, as neighbors to show potential investors that we are a proud community and we are here for the long haul. Thank you.
Larry.
So I think what the community can do to help, right? Probably the most important one, patronizing the businesses over there. I've had conversations with at least two people in this room that have told me they don't go to Ferguson Walmart, right? I mean, it's not the nicest Walmart. There's a lot of issues over there, but that's how you support them. You start patronizing over there. I think that's a big step in the right direction. The second one is the division that goes on with our residents, particularly at things like council meetings, right? Positive comments, constructive comments at council meetings, focused at what can be done to help make the problem go away or fix the problem rather than drive a division. I think that's a big one, right? We all think about it, we all talk about it and look at it on social media. If you were to read something like that, would you want to come to Ferguson and invest? I would have a hard time doing it. I think we have to start treating ourselves and holding ourselves accountable as residents to make our city look great and have the positive image that we want to have so that we don't have that hanging over our head. Thank you.
Ms. Bernie.
Absolutely supporting our businesses. That would be the first thing. According to the comprehensive plan, we should have a portal of some sort through the city of Ferguson where we can, as a community, I'm all in support. I'm a strong advocate of empowering our community. And I do believe with all of the skills and the background and the experience that all of the residents have in our community, we've got our own set of network where we can reach out to people. We can give suggestions. Hey, I know about this grant that you can apply for, blah, blah, blah. That type of stuff can then go to the city of Ferguson. That's part of the comprehensive plan that talks about how we work together as a community. Businesses, hey, I've got a friend that wants to be a part of Ferguson. They want to open up a business. Here's the information, put it in the portal. If you have buildings or developers that are interested in, hey, this person is a developer in our community and they want to do this, put it in the portal. Those are things that are actually listed in the comprehensive plan that we're supposed to be doing. On top of that, I do believe that we should also, we have people that have goods and services. We have people that have their own crafts and their own skills. We can have a market of some sort on West Florissant because, again, the people along West Florissant, a large percent of them are walkers. So we need to have a space where they can come and they can sell their goods and services and be able to profit. And I think that will help us overall.
I'm hearing a lot of conversations about city and resources and services. And so next question is, how do you propose to offer better access and equal access to city services along the West Florissant corridor and along with the businesses along the West Florissant corridor? There was a comment talking about one of the businesses is looking for insurance, issuance of a license, and they haven't received that yet. So what is your thoughts on ensuring that As we're doing this work along the West Florissant corridor and talking about economic development, we're assuring that the city services are provided as needed. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mike first. Do you all know your order? I mean, you know, okay. So for you, I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
If there's a procedural issue of something that's already on the books that's being disparately treated across the city, that's a problem. I don't care what part of town it's in. If you're trying to open a business on West Florissant or Elizabeth or at your home. So that's something that needs to be addressed, internally. There needs to be a process. I've often said with staff, if you get that email, I understand it's Friday, but at least respond and say, I got your email. I'm going to respond to you on Monday. That's a communications issue. But relative to services delivered on West Florissant, it's a tricky one because West Florissant is not a Ferguson road. I believe it's either a state or a county road.
County.
So, it's not Ferguson's role or responsibility to sweep that street. And this is a good example of how Ferguson was frustrated with the state's lack of maintenance on South Florissant Road 25 years ago. So Ferguson went to the state and said, we're gonna take this road from Cool Valley to Little Caesars, and they did. And that's when you saw the major infrastructure improvement of the Victorian lights, the stamped concrete sidewalks, and the new roadway. That was when Ferguson actually took control of the roadway so they could be in control of what happened along it because the state was less than forthcoming to want to do anything to improve it. We're gonna be tied, it's gonna be tricky on West Florissant. West Florissant, like I said, it's night and day difference. That is 5 lanes of travel. West Florissant is a through corridor. You're trying to get from A to B. It's 50,000, 40,000 cars per day. It's a lot of cars, lots of public transportation. So, I do know with the Great Streets Initiative, there's a talk about, who maintains the infrastructure, and the county doesn't want to do it. They're asking the city of Ferguson to do it. And that's where the Ferguson has to make sure if we commit to pulling weeds out of mulch beds and replenishing mulch and fixing trees and all the signage and such, we gotta make sure we have the financial resources to do that, because I don't want to overcommit as a city and then leave people hanging. So I think it's important to figure out whose role is what and who's gonna pay for it before we commit to anything, because I would hate to make a promise and then fail. I'd rather deliver more after we made a weak promise, do better. Thank you.
Put it down a little bit lower. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think I understood the question. What can we do for the services over on West Florissant? First of all, I think that is more of a meeting with the council and with the city manager. So as far as services, I'm thinking of the roads, the streets, and that as being the services. So I think that is a conversation that we sit down and we have with the city manager, we have with the staff. Like I said, with services, that's a broad set word. So I would sit down and I need to know what we're talking about as far as the services on West Florissant. Is people that's in City Hall, they all have a job and they're responsible for their getting things done. So my thing would be that I'm going to the people that's in the office, they get paid to take care of the streets and take care of the parks and everything like that. So my approach would be that I'm going to the city manager, find out what he has lined up, and I'm going to the people in the staff and make sure that they're doing their job.
Here we go.
So the city of Ferguson, we have a customer service issue that's for the entire city. When you call City Hall, you should get a real person. And for those of you who have called City Hall, it's an automated message, transfers you to this voicemail, that voicemail. No one calls you back. You email the city about a complaint or an issue. You may or may not hear back from a representative of the city. So one of the things we have to do, especially along, not just West Florissant, but again, the entire city, we have to streamline the process. I think we need real people answering the phone at City Hall. This is a small, I guess you could say, it's a small town. I manage a a contract for 115,000 homes in St. Louis County. And we always pick up the phone and we always return calls within the same day if we miss them. I think that's reasonable here in Ferguson, so we may need to develop a policy where, hey, you respond to voicemails, emails within 24, 48, 72 hours, whatever it is. There needs to be a standard, and that standard needs to be reported to the council monthly, like a monthly report. How many complaints did we get? How many were rectified? How many did you address? Those are things that puts people at ease, just like our permitting. I think about the businesses. It needs to be a streamlined process. If I go to the city to get a permit to open up a business, that what the information I'm getting is accurate. We had an individual, you all know about Ground Zero. They were told one thing, and then after they put a lot of money into their building, they were denied a liquor license. Now, people can make their own, I guess, summary of why that happened. But I know how, for a lot of folks, perception is reality. Some people can say, hey, it was negligence on the city. Some people may even say it was racist. My thing is that perception gets out in the community and then people run with their own narrative and it looks bad on Ferguson. So we need to streamline that process. It needs to be the same every time somebody calls or walks in the city hall when they wanted to conduct business. Thank you.
Larry?
So I think making sure that the city is streamlined, there's something that Jamil brought up that I think is very important, right? Streamlining our processes in the city is something we have to do. They are not streamlined now. They are complex, right? Getting a license to put in a business, getting a liquor license, those things take a lot of time and effort from the city staff. If they are streamlined, then the city staff has more time to invest answering the phone or doing the things that you need to do, right? So I think that's the first step. With regards to equal access along West Florissant, again, Mr. Palmer alluded to that. It's very tricky, but I think there are some things that we could do to ensure that. If you think about corridors like West Florissant that you see around other cities and around in St. Louis County and things like that, those corridors are populated with anchor businesses and there aren't that many small businesses there, right? I think one of the things we have to do is look at the fact that people are getting from point A to point B and they may not be stopping a lot along West Florissant when they're traveling to work in the morning or coming home in the evening. Right, those anchor businesses have got to be things that you want in the morning. The fact that we lost the McDonald's there, that's a stop for a lot of people when they're going into work in the morning, right? You get your breakfast there. Starbucks, you get your coffee there. I think we got to think about what West Florissant provides in terms of a traffic corridor and make sure that we try to attract businesses that give people an equal opportunity, whether they're going to work, coming home from work, or whether they're a resident that simply lives there and needs access to buy groceries. Thank you.
Brent?
Question, I want to make sure that I'm answering it fully.
Services along the West Florissant corridor, ensuring that the city is providing equitable access to businesses along West Florissant as they are with other areas.
Services?
Yes,
Is that the
services.
question?
That's the question.
Services that perform, that I heard a lot. Okay. So I'll try to answer that because I think I heard a question in there somewhere. I would say, first things first, in regards to specifically, I'm going to touch on the whole liquor license with Ground Zero because that was something, for one, in terms of the One West Florissant plans that we had, we talked about how many liquor stores were along West Florissant, how many different places actually sold liquor. And so for me, and we have a very high turnover rate internally in terms of the city of Ferguson. I think whoever's serving in those departments should familiarize themselves with the different ordinances that we have in place. As businesses come in, they should already know, what is acceptable and what is not, so that we don't get this far along in the process. Because what that ends up doing, and I'm just being very honest, that ends up putting putting on the city at stake. That opens us up for things like litigation and things of that nature, because you started that process and then halfway through, you're telling them, oh, something exists that prevents you from being, I wouldn't want any business that is interested into the city of Ferguson to come in thinking that they're able to do business and then come to find out that they're not. So I will say that. And that actually came from, I remember us having a special meeting. We had residents, we had clergy. We put that in there when the Boys and Girls Club first got in, because we didn't want all of those liquor stores along that area. Where we had a church literally right behind the market, where we had a Boys and Girls Club where kids were gonna be attending. So we actually had meetings. We had a special meeting, a special hearing rather, from all of these folks that came in and expressed their concerns in regards to that. Out of that came this ordinance. The existing places were grandfathered in because they already existed. So I think in terms of that, it's not just about streamlining. Oh, I'm sorry. I do apologize. Okay, I'll leave it there.
And Henry.
Hello again. I think that we need to really find out what's happening in the city hall with regards to people not receiving the answering phone calls. It may be because may not have enough people, or maybe a culture. If it's a culture, that's the responsibility of the city council to address the issue to the citizens and say, hey, what's going on? City manager, what's going on with this? This is the number of complaints we're getting. What are you going to do to mitigate those issues? And if it is funding, that if we need to hire more people and we can afford to hire more people, fine. If it requires streamlining, then we'll streamline. It is important that when you call your city hall that you need to find out what's going on. With regard to the question about the liquor license, I used to own a restaurant, and in the city of St. Louis, if you want to get a liquor license, there's a process where you get signatures from the people that live in that area, and you get signature from the businesses that are around that area. And if they all meet the number of requirement that the city said, you get your liquor license. What I understood in this case, I don't know, but what I heard in this case is that the gentleman was made to believe that they could build the place and get their liquor license in the middle of it. Now they can't, they've invested cash. And normally, they're supposed to come to the city hall and talk to city council about their liquor license. So the question is, what happened with their conversation, between the conversation with the city council that they're going to build this place and when they completed the place? So it is critical that we coordinate our interaction with the public and make sure that it's easy for business to do businesses, record the rate tape for business to do business in Ferguson. That's how we're going to attract investment. You can't attract investment when people put their money in and now they can't get what they want to do and we end up with litigation. So thank you very much.
All right, next question. You will be up first.
Okay.
Who do you see as taking the lead in this economic development project and initiative? Is there a task force that is involved? And if there is a task force, who should be on that task force? So who should take the lead in the economic development work initiative? And if there's a task force involved, who should be a part of that task force?
That's the question.
Yes, I think there should be a task force. I think it should be people that already have business in Ferguson. It should be, a representative from each ward, even though West Florissant is Ward 3, maybe Ward 1. But I think, at least one representative from each, council, each ward, I'm sorry. Let me think. That's a really good question. I would say people that already own business, have business in oh my goodness, in Ferguson. And I don't know, I think it would, huh? That's all I have. Yes.
You say you want me to call you up, and then you just come on up before I can call you on up. All right, Jamil, come on up.
So I think our point person should be our city manager. We pay our city manager to run the day-to-day operations, and so I would want him to lead us in those efforts. As far as the task force, I think that, the council as a whole would be in agreement that that's something that we need to establish. As far as who sits on it, I think the council should have a representative, along with the city manager leading that task force. Maybe our public works director, individuals from our business district. Also, I would like to see just regular stakeholders from the community across all three wards, especially some young folks. I'm 45 and now I'm kind of aging out of my youth. And so I have staff that are in their 20s. And so I tell myself all the time, it's like they have ideas that may be foreign to me and I can't really understand. And I mean, that's not a bad thing, so we need to embrace our youth, and let them tell us what they want for the city. So definitely we need a team, we need a task force that include our youth. And then I would say maybe other community partners. I mean, we could consider if we wanted someone from St. Louis County as well to help guide us, because St. Louis County is kind of the biggest entity in our region as far as government is concerned. And I think that would be good. We probably would need some alternatives because, some folks won't make those meetings, but that's kind of that's where I'm at on that. Thanks.
Just for the record, I'm a little bit older than you and I'm still young, so I'm just gonna go ahead and hold on to that. Hold on to that. All right. Don't let the gray hair fool you. It's all good. Larry.
So who should take the lead, right? For economic development, I believe is where the question was centered around. Given that it's a partnership between us and Delwood and the county, I think first of all, you gotta have all three stakeholders at the table, right? You can't just say that because Ferguson has the biggest slice of West Florissant, they should be the ones dictating the economic development. I think it takes all of them coming to the table to look at what do we do to develop this? Because what you put in one area is gonna affect the residents that are going up and down that street to the different areas, right? So in terms of Ferguson's piece in that role, I think that definitely is held by the city manager. I think that's their role. I think that's the way our charter's written. I think that's their purpose. I think they take their input from the community, a task force. If a task force is decided that that's what we should put together, the city manager would sit down and take his input from the task force, from the city council, and anybody else that's got feedback on what needs to be there. I think it's gotta be focused on economic development. My biggest fear with task force is they often get focused on things that have little to do with economic development. And there's a lot of personal agendas in there. I think that's up to the city manager to control and manage while he's hosting those meetings if there is a task force in place. Thank you.
Fran?
So I know we'll need somebody from economic development. We will most definitely need to have the city manager involved. I would also say the lead for planning, for the planning department. They know a lot of information and it's gonna be necessary. In terms of a task force, we also need the neighborhood associations. So I'm going back to this comprehensive plan again. The comprehensive plan specifically talking about certain areas of development requires us to create a task force, a small plan, for specific areas. And it included the neighborhood association. So that would be, if we're talking about Sector 5, that would be Southeast Ferguson, and that would be Forestwood. We need to have, like I said, the economic development, the city manager, and we'll also need to have somebody from the planning and development.
Henry is up next. Henry.
I think we need both the city manager and the council in this conversation, but also we're going to have to include St. Louis County. St. Louis County has St. Louis County Development, Economic Development Program, and also the state of Missouri, Department of Economic Development. Because all these people are planning what they want to see in a particular place. It is critical that we invite them and that they are part of it. And we also invite the business community, the Chamber of Commerce. They know where the money is and they know what they want to see in a particular community. It is not ironic that Clayton is where it is today and Richmond Heights and Brentwood are where they are, and we're here trying to figure out how to deal with what happens in our own community. If we reach out to those groups, if we reach out to the people that I just mentioned, they'll help us. The state of Missouri has interest in Ferguson moving forward, but it cannot work with Ferguson if he doesn't have people to work with. St. Louis County wants Ferguson to move forward. He cannot work with Ferguson if he doesn't have partnership. And business community are looking for places to invest. And I keep saying it again and again. I love Ferguson. Ferguson is a nice place to invest. We need a hotel. We need a movie theater. We need something to bring people to Ferguson, not drive by. So those are the things we have to think about in terms of how we improve our state. And we can talk about it all night long, but it's critical that we think in those ways. The state of Missouri has a lot of power to bring in terms of economic development. St. Louis County does that. And the business community like Samsung, Chapman, they build in this community. So they can, I'm not asking for us to build anything, but to build something that we can use. Thank you.
And Mike.
For the deployment of the redevelopment of West Florissant, both infrastructure wise and any kind of redevelopment, we already have the tools. I think it's just a matter of setting up the organizational chart. And I would almost envision something like the city manager near the top with the city council, you know, who directs the city manager, but then you have the department heads that are relevant. You know, finance is huge, planning and development's big. Even the streets department's big too, but then they can also count on a lot of our boards and commissions as far as the traffic commission. You know, they could help out when it comes to the traffic studies of West Florissant. The Economic Development Sales Tax Board has some insight when it comes to, you know, financing instruments to get projects done. You can count on the Plan Commission. You know, they have plan review expertise, long-term strategic planning for the city. They're familiar with all that. And then also you have the Board of Adjustment. You know, if somebody wants to build something that doesn't fall within our zoning guidelines, you have the Board of Adjustment that can meet to decide if they're going to allow that variance or not. This came into play with St. Louis Community College. You know, they wanted to do major improvements to their campus, and our Board of Adjustment had to approve their signage because their signage on 270 would have been about this big if it met the requirement. It had to meet the requirements of our city's ordinance. The campus is actually built in a residential zoning district. So you bring all those partners in that are already established boards, members of the community, and you get a pretty good snapshot of input from all aspects of the city when it comes to any kind of development projects, because development projects are extremely complex. Architectural Review Board can get, you know, there's so many boards, they all almost have a finger in what's going on when it comes to a big project. Thank you.
All right, next question. Jamil, you will be first on this question. All right. If you get on council, what will you do to move the 2040 plan forward? Do you know where that plan is as we speak? Do you feel it's needed? Why or why not? And how will you keep the Ferguson community informed of the progress of that plan? You want me to repeat it? You got it?
I got it.
All right.
I got it. Yeah, that's a long one. So if I'm elected to council, I definitely will push for the 2040 plan. Some of the first steps I'll do to keep community informed. One of my platforms is that I will have weekend hours for my constituents. So I plan to keep residents informed about the progress we're making. Of course, if I'm elected, I think the first thing we'll be doing is going over the budget. We're moving into our budget season. So a lot of that information about the finances of the city, I'll get in the coming months, I guess May. And those issues I'll be able to report and get up to speed with the incumbents as well as our city manager. As far as what I think personally about our 2040 plan, I think it's a good project. It's a lot of moving pieces, but then again, we're still kind of in that planning phase, just to make sure that everything is ironed out. And then also, I think, Mike, you might have mentioned it earlier, you know, or maybe it was Larry, I can't remember, but a lot of this, the grant funding that's associated with a lot of the projects here, you know, a lot of that is in limbo right now because of where our federal administration is. So, I would say in this next year, it would be mostly planning and working toward the 2040 plan on the planning stage. Thank you. Larry?
So the 2040 plan, right, I can probably speak most to the housing portion of the 2040 plan. I'm intimately involved with that. As a president of FNIP at this point, we started 3 years ago implementing pieces of the 2040 plan through the grants program that we have to try to bring homeowners some help in maintaining their property, to try to attract new homeowners into the city of Ferguson, which has been done very well. There's about 15 that have come in the last 3 years that qualified for homeowner assistance. When you get outside of the home plan and the 2040 plan, I don't think we've had a lot of traction yet. I do think that the streets initiative is something that we're starting to work on. That started this year, particularly in Ward 3 with the investment that we started to make in the infrastructure and the streets there. The 2040 plan requires a lot of infrastructure investment in the city of Ferguson, and that's expensive, right? Investing in infrastructure so that the rest of the things can be built around that takes a lot of planning and a lot of foresight from the city council during the budget process. During that budget process, if I'm elected, I intend to put a strong focus on the development of infrastructure in Ferguson, the things that are decayed and run down, particularly in some of our parks, some of the things we have on some other roads. We need to focus on that so that we can then build around it and bring the economic part along behind the infrastructure. Thank you.
Brent?
I would be remiss if I did not respond. We also need to have the West Florissant Business District involved in that previous thing. I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave them out. It wasn't on purpose. I was looking at you and speaking fast. So anyway, can you please repeat that?
2040 plan.
Oh, yes. What I think about the 2040 plan, first of all, you can find the comprehensive, AKA 2040 plan on the city's website. You can find it right there. It's literally go on to government. It's right there to the right when you click on it. You can read through it. It's about 200 and something pages, 240 something pages. And it talks about not just housing, it talks about not just the streets and the safety, it talks about transportation, it talks about businesses. It goes into detail about what came out of that year-long process. It talks about specifically about policies that the city of Ferguson can actually adopt to move this plan forward in multiple different facets. And so I think it's a good plan. I was on the planning, I served on the planning commission. I was the council representative for the planning commission when I was in the seat. And again, I took part in it as the council representative for that as we were making it along. So I thought it was great because it gathered everybody's opinions. It didn't just specifically pick out certain ones, and it has a focus on equity. You know, it has a focus. The development is specifically about equity. So those areas in our community that are underserved, that are underdeveloped, it talked about making those areas a priority, which is Sector 5.
Next up is Henry. I was gonna do that too. All right. If you get on council, what will you do to move the 2040 plan forward? Where is that plan as we speak? Do you feel it's needed? Why or why not? And how can we keep the community informed?
Well, I think it's needed. I will support it, but the only thing I have to do is to make sure that we adjust with realities of what's happening in the country in terms of federal government funding and also the economic fallout that we're going to be facing. But I think it's critical that we focus on working on Ward 3. I'm running for Ward 1, but I think we need to focus on doing serious economic development on that part of West Florissant and not worry about who's gonna cut the grass once we get the money from the federal government. We'll find ways. That's why you're in leadership. When you're in leadership, you find ways to find solutions for existing problems. What I would do is incorporate the community, like my partner here, Jamel. I will be doing, hopefully, weather permitting, I'll be doing what I knew when I was young, where the city council has council or politicians or elected officials come to the neighborhood and do block parties. That's when you get information from the community, what they need. So you're in contact, not only coming to them when you need a vote, but you're in contact with your community and finding what they need to done in the city hall. One last thing is that we need to be cognizant that when we get that time is of essence in terms of funding that we get from the federal government, and we should not be only focusing on grant writing. We should be focusing on business development. Those are what business stay for a long time. Grants disappear depending on what government that you have. So it's critical that we try to bring businesses in our community that will stay for a long time. Thank you.
Mike?
I think the 2040 plan is a good plan. We've already been working on a lot of that with unprecedented investment within housing demolition, road improvements, business development, trying to work with FNIP to transfer people, homes into homeowners instead of renters. We do a lot of those things already. The 2040 plan comes with a multi-million-dollar price tag to implement. I mean, tens of millions probably if you had a crystal ball and you could make it happen. My biggest problem with the 2040 plan is it cost us about $800,000. And it was created with input from the community, which I wish I would have preferred we did that on our own instead of hiring an outside firm that in no way their leadership represented a community such as ours. No way. I was at the Urban League, for different meetings, and I was very concerned when I had the initial meeting with the organization that was putting it together at a cost of about $800,000. This isn't unprecedented, though. We have a Parks Master Plan that costs 6 figures. We have a long-term strategic plan that costs 6 figures. We have a zoning plan that still hasn't been completed yet that was close to 6 figures. Is that correct, Mr. Shropshire? Exactly. It's supposed to be done 3-4 years ago. It's not even done yet. So a plan is only as good as the implementation of it in the long-term plan. We have a lot of plans that sit on shelves. We have a traffic calming plan that was designed in 2011 for South Florissant Road that cost 6 figures that would change it from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road with a center turn lane and parking on the east side. Most people in this room don't even know about it. I have a copy of it, but it cost us a bunch of money. We never implemented it. So a study is only as good as the need for it and the implementation of it. So 2040 plan has some great points. We're working on those. It's great to have the input, but I wish we would have wrote that ourselves with 20 to 40, or maybe one group of 10 stakeholders and then small subgroups that specialize in certain topics. It would have saved us a whole lot of money to implement the 2040 plan. Thank you.
Mika?
Okay, so if I'm elected, yes, I think we should continue moving forward with the 2040 plan. I'm on FNIP also with Larry, and what we're doing with housing. So I have not read the whole 200 and some pages. I guess I'll do that tonight because I won't be sleeping. But from what I have read, it's supposed to improve the streets. It's supposed to improve making homes more affordable, having people move in. So I think we're moving into a positive way with it. Making Ferguson beautiful. So I think as long as we stay on that track, that we'll be fine. But like Mike said, if we're not using the plan, what use is it? We can write stuff down all day long, and we can stand up here and say, yep, we gonna do it, but if we're not doing it, some of this stuff should not take 4 or 5 years. I don't, it's like having a meeting to have another meeting. We need to make these plans and get the ball moving in the right direction and stop talking about it. Thank you.
I think that was our last question, because we have 10 minutes left, and 6 times 2 is 12, and that's. Hey, if I can't do anything else, I can do math. So with that, I would like to thank all of our candidates for joining us tonight and for answering the questions, and thank you for everyone in the audience for asking the questions, and everyone online as well. Appreciate you. And as a reminder, election is on Tuesday. Yep. Or you can vote for it now as well.
Thank you, Maud.
Thank you, Maud, as well.